Last week we did an overlay. This week we're going to actually backfill this overlay. It's only been about a week and a half for these nails. You can see they look like they're not grown out at all, and that's really due to the type of cuticle prep that I do. When you actually do a really good job on cuticle prep, the nails last longer, and also the regrowth looks much, much smaller than it would be if you just did a regular style manicure. But before we get into all of the e-file cuticle prep stuff that can be really complicated, I really want to go over some more basic stuff that you guys can be practicing before we start working on skin, as that is a very delicate area and I want you guys to feel really comfortable before we start doing that. If this is the first video you're seeing on my channel, or if you haven't been watching the videos in order, I really encourage you to go to my actual channel page, click on the playlist called Nail Fundamentals, and start watching the videos from the beginning. It'll help you accumulate the knowledge you need to keep up with the stuff that I'm doing on a weekly basis. You can also subscribe to my channel and you'll get notified of the new videos as they get released every week. So what I'm doing right now is going through every nail and removing the old color. As you recall from my previous e-file video with this volcano bit, I want to go through and I just want to remove the superficial layers of color and maintain that overlay that I applied last time. That protective overlay I applied on the natural nail under the color is going to protect the natural nail while I'm e-filing off the color. It's going to continue to give that natural nail strength, and it just acts like a safety buffer for me to be able to protect that natural nail. I don't want to touch it over and over again. I just want to manipulate the color on top of it. So I'm just going through and removing layer by layer of the color, leaving that base layer there. And you can see as I start to file, this kind of milky white gel base is going to be there. That's kind of how you can identify that that's the base coat, is it does have a very opaque, milky white color to it. As I'm e-filing off the color, I look for things like lifting. I look for things like problems with the natural nail underneath. Typically, while you're e-filing off the color, you'll be able to either see lifting right away. It'll look very, very white. It won't be attached to the natural nail. And I'm using a very, very light pressure and a very high speed on my e-file as I go through with this bit. This bit is specifically made for filing off layers of color. I've got the link to it down below if you'd like to get a bit like this. It really allows me to just shave off layers of color without disturbing the natural nail or that overlay underneath. This bit also can work in both directions. So if you're left-handed, you can use it in reverse and go left to right. I'm right-handed, so I have it in forward, and I'm just going through the nails one at a time, removing just the layers of color and top coat. You'll notice I change the angle of my bit depending on what area I'm going through. And as I go through the cuticle area, I'm very cautious to stay away from the skin. It's also a good idea to use light pressure and a high speed because you're going to end up maintaining the smoothness of the overlay underneath. So the goal here is to really eliminate the maximum amount of work we can eliminate when we're going to change the color. So if I can maintain that base layer nice and smooth, keep an even thickness throughout, then I'm not going to have to go back and rebuild the nail again like I did the first time. I'm just going to be able to add more product and then continue with the color application. So the more you can do while you're working to prevent extra work or extra steps, the better. The nice thing about using this overlay technique is we're not having to soak off the gel every single time. We're able to maintain a protective layer on the natural nail, so we're not, accidentally removing layers of the natural nail every time our client comes to visit. And it's a much faster process than going through the whole soak off process and then reapplying. I do have my dust vacuum underneath as well. You'll see the dust getting sucked up right down into my dust collector. Okay, so I'm just going to dust off the hands. I do have my dust collector on, so all that dust is going to get sucked right down. You'll also notice I don't wear gloves while I'm e-filing. I don't like wearing gloves when I e-file just because they tend to get caught, so it depends on your personal preference. And then I'm just going to remove the edges on my nail file before I finish file the free edge of these nails. So this pinky has a little mini extension on it that was used to add a teeny bit of length to even out the length of the natural nails. This client actually broke off her ring finger and her pinky nail, and so we added just a mini extension just to make them look a little bit more even. And now that it's been regrown a little bit, we don't necessarily need that full mini extension anymore. So you can shorten the nails to whatever the preferred length is for that client or for yourself. And an overlay also is awesome because it doesn't have to be something that you use on long nails. You can keep your nails really short or really active length if that's what you prefer. And you can add strength and durability to your nails even if they're short. A lot of people think that artificial products are only for long nails, but overlays are a great way to protect natural nails no matter what length they are and really add strength to the natural length and natural shape of a client. You can fix corners as well, which we'll get into in later videos. But really, it's about being able to maintain the health of the natural nails, being able to work on them efficiently, and eliminate steps that might cause damage and also add time to the service. So I just go through, even out anything that needs to be evened out. You'll notice I touch my client as I go through, making sure that their hand is in the right position for me to work. And just making sure that it's to their desired length and shape. It might look like I'm using a lot of pressure on the nail file, but really I'm not. I'm using a very light pressure and more of a fast speed as I file. That helps me keep contact with the natural nail while I'm filing, and it also eliminates the risk of giving my client cuts. Also, taking the edges off of your nail file is imperative to making sure that you don't cut your client while filing. I always take the edges off, as you've seen in my file video that I did a few weeks back, and also as you saw while I was prepping this file. I basically just take my cuticle pusher and run the edges of my nail file on it to remove any sharp grit that might accidentally cut my client while I'm working. So whatever the length and shape is that you're trying to achieve, that's exactly what you're going to do. And you'll see just how much dust gets trapped by my Zephyros dust collector. This is unbelievable just to look at after the whole removal process. This is what could have been in your mouth, in your lungs, all over your table. So that's why I love using a dust collector. All right, so let's take a look at the natural nail now that we've removed some of the gel. And I wanted to kind of show you guys what you're going to see when you're removing gel. A lot of you are probably wondering, how the heck do I know whether or not I'm working on the gel base coat, the overlay, or if I'm actually touching the natural nail? And I wanted to kind of show you the difference in texture that you'll see. So I removed a little bit of extra gel on one side of this nail so that you could see where the natural nail is and where it meets the gel. If you see on this red line, it kind of outlines this difference between an opaque, kind of rough looking product and then also this more smooth, a little bit darker colored natural nail plate. So that's how you can kind of start to notice what's natural nail, what's not natural nail, is really looking at the nail up close and taking a look at color differences, texture differences, and gel will always look a little bit milky, a little bit opaque, and a little bit more matte than the natural nail. You'll also notice near the sidewall of this nail, I've got a little bit of residual gel polish. You can see that purpley gray color that we had on before. And that I'm going to take care of during my cuticle prep. And I do that with specialty diamond bits for cuticles. Again, I'm going to do a special video for you guys going over the bits first and showing you how to use them before I show them to you on a real service. But I just wanted to highlight that yes, there is dry skin and product around that sidewall, and we're going to take care of that doing our cuticle prep. So when you're done with removing the previous color, you should still have the majority of your base overlay left over on the natural nail. You should also see that it's got an even color consistency. There's no rings of fire. There's no areas where the nail looks more red than others. And so this is what you ultimately want to look for when you're removing your gel polish with an e-file, is that you still maintain that beautiful color of the natural nail and maintaining that health because we still have the overlay protecting it. I'm just going to give you a sneak peek of the color that I put on after we backfilled the overlay. And so you can do any variety of colors, glitters on any length of nail with overlays. It really works for any type of service, and it really does add extra strength. The other thing I love is that it allows you to create a little bit more of an apex on the natural nail, give it a little bit more of a shape, and really beautify whatever has been naturally given to each client that you work on, or even yourself. If you have naturally flat nails and you want to add a little bit more of shape to them, you can absolutely do that with this overlay technique, and it's going to be much easier to remove it with an e-file than if you tried to soak off all of this product every single 2 weeks. So I'm sure some of you are still wondering why you would do overlays versus just soaking off your gel polish. All right, so let's go over a few of the reasons why. We can add strength, we can add shape, we can protect the natural nail from repeated filing, scraping, manipulation, and also dryness caused from acetone during the soak-off process. It's a much faster process to do overlays and removal with an overlay than it is to do traditional soak-off removal. And also, your product is going to last a lot longer. When we've got an overlay on the natural nail, it creates a less flexible surface. So you'll notice that things like gel polish, even if it's a hybrid gel that's a little bit more chippy, you'll notice that that lasts a lot longer. You can even put nail polish over your gel overlay, and you'll notice how much longer the nail polish lasts because we no longer have a flexible, bendy nail that's going to lead to chipping and cracking of our product. And last but not least, I have to bring this up because I also know some of you have not heard this before. There's a lot of misconception out there that nails need to breathe. Our nails don't breathe. So as long as there's no lifting, there's really nothing that can go wrong with putting gel on your natural nails. So this whole backfill process really doesn't matter whether or not you're removing it every single time. I get a lot of people who see me do overlays or they see me do artificial nails and they're like, oh, how long can you continue to backfill before you have to take everything off because your nails need to breathe? I'm like, no, your nails don't breathe. Our hair doesn't breathe. Our nails don't breathe. So as long as there's no lifting in between the natural nail and the product, there's really very little that can go wrong with having an overlay on your nails long term. The biggest things that happen with overlays are lifting, where you've got separation between the product and the natural nail. Stuff gets in there like water, bacteria, then you start to have problems. Or the other thing that happens is people peel it off, and you can imagine how much more nail it will take with it if you peel off a more rigid product than if you would just had gel polish on your nails. So as long as you're not picking off your overlay and you have no lifting, there's nothing to be afraid of or anything that can go wrong with the health of your nail. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.